One of the absolute best things about Final Fantasy XIV is its controller support. Built in natively, you can just plug in a PS5 controller or an Xbox controller, or even a Stadia or some other third-party controller, and the system is just going to work for you. Now, it's the goal of this guide to dive in and show you everything that you could possibly want to know and make you a master at this game and playing on controller. But note, it's going to require one thing from you, and that's a little bit of muscle memory. So don't be too hard on yourself if things don't naturally feel right at the start of this, but it's the goal of this guide to really kind of be this all-encompassing controller guide to get you into Final Fantasy XIV and either help transition you from keyboard and mouse or start Final Fantasy XIV for the first time ever, and note that you can play this game 100% on controller. If this guide doesn't answer a question that you have, sound off in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. And also feel free to use the chapters in this guide to jump to any specific section. Now, hello everyone, my name is Brian if you're new around here, and for returning subscribers, welcome back, you magnificent beasts. That's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free compliments at the start of videos. And just as an aside, the goal I have for this year in this channel is to hit 100,000 subscribers. I know it sounds insane, but if you haven't hit that subscribe button, if you do so, let me know and I can welcome you officially and thank you officially in the comments, but it does help me move towards that goal here in 2022. But outside of that pitch, thanks just for being here. Hopefully you enjoy the video, and let's go ahead and dive in and get you playing Final Fantasy XIV on a controller. Now, while you can actually do this from the main menu, note that we're going to go into System and System Configuration. This is where you can go into your controller and gamepad settings and have a lot of different options available to you. This also works on PS5 and more, but let's go ahead and dive in. For PC, I have enabled the gamepad, and if you have multiple controllers actually hooked up, you will see them in the drop-down list here. So if I actually had my PS5 controller plugged in, you would see that here is that drop-down. Now what I have as an option is keep GABpad enabled when the client is inactive. That is something that is going to be very helpful for you if you're running a multi-monitor setup, but if you're playing the game in full screen, it isn't as necessary. I have enable vibration turned on. You can turn that off from this menu. Enable LB and L for auto run. We'll talk about that more here in our keybinds. Enable zoom via the down R click. That's what that little arrow when I kind of hover over it. That's what that means here on the screen. Enable text pasting with the LB and RB option if you so choose to use that. Enable virtual mouse. I would highly recommend that, especially if you're on PlayStation and you're not using a keyboard and mouse setup. You also have your calibration and button configuration. I'm going to show you guys some button configuration options real quick. Now, personally speaking, I actually remap my Y and my X or my square and triangle buttons accordingly. The reason is that's just a personal preference. You can do that. The other thing I do is down on the click for the right stick, I have it as execute macro 99. And I'll go over this more in detail as job specific controller guides here on this channel. Be sure to check the top link in the playlist for the Endwalker controller guides. That way you can jump to any particular guide over a job and how I kind of lay out the settings and more. That's to come here in the future, real near future, mind you. So just keep it locked here to the channel for that. But anyway, I use this as a mount and sprint option, and I'll show you that macro here in a little bit. But you can easily change these to different options, and you'll see macro 98 and 99 as two different options to select from right there. So overall, just basic idea of button configuration. LB or L1 is auto run. Left trigger is going to be your left bar on your hotbar. Right trigger is going to be the same. That's how you activate your skills. When nothing is pressed, the face buttons themselves are going to actually act as jump, select, cancel, and open map subcommands. And I'll walk through that with you all here in a little bit more detail. Change hotbar set is set to R1 or RB. Open map subcommands is, in my case, is Y. By default, that is actually set to your jump, and then your jump, or my jump, is actually set to my subcommand, sorry, my map, etc. Anyway, I got it reversed. I apologize for that, so hopefully I haven't confused you. B is set to cancel, and A is set to select target and confirm. R stick is set to move camera, and L stick is set to move my character, and then pressing down on the left stick is going to draw and sheath my weapons. Let me go ahead and show you all of that. I'm not going to change that. So here it is in reality. One of the things you actually see me noticing is that by actually using LB, it not only acts as auto run, but it acts as an alt. So you can zoom in and out of your camera real easy just by holding down left bumper. But if I just want to auto run, I'm moving in any direction, I can go ahead and auto run and still even zoom out my camera as necessary. So auto running is going to be a real nice feature for you guys to use. And if that's not essentially the best binding for you, you can change that. Pressing down on the L stick, you can see here I can draw and sheath my weapon. This will actually affect targeting. So we didn't really talk about too much about targeting, but left and right and up and down on the D-pad act as your targeting, and we'll jump more into our filter section here just a little bit. But you can see here I can target various things, but if I draw out my weapon, then oh my gosh, nothing's targeting because I don't actually have any enemies to hit in that regards. RB is allowing me to change my little palette down there at the bottom, you can see. And then right trigger, left trigger, we talked about that. Here's where it kind of have mine reversed. Like I said, X for me is jump, and Y is map. Those are reversed here on this particular guide, but note that you can just mentally do that math and you'll be fine. You can press Y to bring up your map. You can press Y to close your map. And there's settings, like in this case, as you see, my map is now inactive. I have to press Y again to become the active, and then I can press Y again to close it. B is for cancel. A is for select. So in this case, you can see here any kind of default section for targeting, it's going to default to NPCs, which is really nice. So here it's going to target my closest NPC, but now it's also in a cone before me. So that's why I'm targeting Tofflewib here rather than Baldwiz there. And the same thing goes for the summoning bell. In fact, if you're busy and there's a lot going on and there's a lot of characters around like you see right now, and you're just trying to target the right NPC, you can always have nothing targeted and press A, and it should actually default to the NPC that you're trying to target. It's actually a really nice feature. But anyway, like in terms of that, pressing A is a nice little hard target, and then pressing A and again is going to allow me to engage with that. Pressing B is going to allow me to cancel out of that as well. A couple other buttons we didn't really cover too much: the select and start, or the touchpad on the PS5. Pressing select will allow you to navigate and jump between different menu items on the menu itself. Now, my UI from all perspectives isn't necessarily like the best displayed here, but you can jump between your quest log, your mini map, your like chat box and all that. So that's a good way to tie, like with nothing selected, toggle. And then start is going to bring up your menu in which you'll have your various options. Now under character configuration, you can actually change how all this looks and feels. So if you're just coming into this game and you're playing on keyboard and mouse, note that I can still use and move the controller around. As you can see here behind the little menu, we can go ahead and close out of that. So you can see here, I can actually still control my character, but there's something that's different about it. So you can see here, my menu has been changed. So if you're looking at this kind of normal menu, you can press on this, go into back to character configuration, and I can toggle this right here. But one of the cool things isn't even in keyboard and mouse mode. I can actually still also use legacy type controls, which is a very nice thing to have. So just note that legacy type controls mean that as I move the stick around, my character runs in that direction. Or if I go into my system and my character configuration and I stick to standard type, then if I go ahead and hit backwards, then I'm going to walk backwards and strafe side to side as well. So there's a lot of movement options, and the game has a lot of flexibility when it comes to how you actually interact with it, which is really nice to see. But easily switching in, you have two different complete UI options and modes. One of the things, let me go ahead and actually touch on the UI perspective real quick here as well. Because when it comes down to your HUD, you actually have 4 different UIs as well. So when it comes down, let's say whether you're switching in between the two, you could actually set up different HUDs for your different character roles and more. And that's actually can be very advantageous for how you actually interact with the game. So I'm going to go ahead and like drag my party list into display for the window here. And now essentially if I was on my, like on a character, I can actually interact with my party list by pressing up and down on the D-pad. Now, as we dive further into how the system and all the controls and how your actions are actually set. Now here I am on my, my summoner, but it isn't necessarily important whatever job that you're playing. For example, I can go here into hitting start and going into actions, and you can see the various actions that I have to choose from. So let's say I wanted to go ahead and bind these actions to my hotbar. You can go ahead and actually press your sub select menu, my case Y, your case X by default. It's going to bring up this little handy palette. This is going to allow me to set the different abilities. Now, I'm going to go ahead and randomly set this to, like, let's say hotbar. I don't have a lot of space here. Let me pick on hotbar 7. And pressing the button that I want it to be assigned to now assigns that button. Now you'll see here this auto upgrades. Several skills will auto upgrade as you level up, which is actually very handy. You just have to set the low level version, and then the game's going to handle it for you so that as you go into dungeons and more, that you don't have to reset and rebind your skills. Very handy overall for the game. But that's one way that you can actually bind these different options. Obviously, clearly do, again, the sub-select menu. But let's say you wanted to go ahead and drag and drop, and you don't actually have a mouse. The game has a great feature. Let's hold down the L1 again, which is our magical L1, press R3, and we're now going to be in virtual mouse mode. So you can see I'm moving the mouse cursor by using the right stick. This is going to allow me to take that with the left click here, or the left trigger, and I can drag this on and drop this onto various hotbars. So you can actually move skills around by using your controller in a virtual mouse mode and drag things on and off various hotbars. One of the things you'll try to do is you'll try to interact with your W cross hotbar, and we'll dive more into these in a minute. These are only preview windows, and they are linked to a specific hotbar. So that's the hotbar that you actually have to interact with. In my case, that's going to be hotbar 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and hold down R bumper, pressing, in this case, the A, B, X, or Y lets you jump to any particular of the 8 hotbars you have selected. In my case, A is going to be 3. If I wanted to go ahead and use that virtual mouse and I want to rearrange, I can rearrange right here. And you can see here it's automatically reflected. So you have to interact with whatever the linked hotbar is. Pressing L1 and the click 3 will actually return you out of virtual mouse mode back into normal camera control mode. And that's just one way you can actually move the, the mouse and actually drag and drop without having to hook up an actual physical mouse in this game. Now, we just showed you guys how to set various skills via this window. You can see here I am just pressing select to navigate various window panes. This is the actions and traits is not active. Pressing selected now is my active. I can actually press B and close that window out. But let's go ahead and show you guys something else. Let's go ahead and say you want to clean up and rearrange your hotbar naturally. So if I go in here, let's say I want to go ahead and for some reason remove my limit break. If I press and hold down the left trigger or the right trigger, in this case right trigger, and press the select button, it's now going to bring up my editing of the hotbar. I can actually move things around by just kind of pressing the skill I want and the skill I want it to be. And you can see here I can move those up and down. If I want to delete a skill, press it twice and it's going to have me confirm that I in fact want to delete that off my hotbar. But let's say I want to move Lucid Dreaming downward. You can actually just easily rearrange skills. So as you're playing and you get a kind of a feel for it, you don't always have to go into your action traits and drag and drop various skills. You could actually just move the skills as they get set. Because as you level, naturally, that's going to update and change. To exit out of the edit hotbar, you can press the back button, the select button, and then there you go. And you can see here I kind of return myself back to the default hotbar settings. That's how you add, that's how you remove and map or remap those options. But let's go ahead and dive actually further down the rabbit hole, shall we? Here under character configuration, we've got a lot of different options. We already covered standard and legacy type camera movement. And in my other video, I do a deep dive in all of these settings. But what I want to focus in on now is a few things for you guys. First and foremost is target. This is going to allow you to have a lot of different options. You can see here automatically lock on target when initiating an auto attack. So let's go ahead and turn on automatically lock on targets. Let me show you what that actually looks like. Here I am, a nice little striking dummy. If I go ahead and start attacking, you can see here with that feature turned on, I am now locked onto him. And as I run left and right, it's kind of Legend of Zelda style. You can see here that navigation. You can actually turn this on and off manually by pressing down on the left stick. Let me go ahead and reset that striking dummy. And let me go ahead and turn that off in this case. Personally speaking, if you're having struggles, that might be a good thing to turn on, but ultimately I like to have that control as needed. A couple settings here that we want to talk about here in targeting. Automatically face target when using an action, highly recommended. Enable auto target when no target is specified, highly recommended. Disable targeting of pets and minions when in battle, highly recommended because there's nothing you can really do to them anyway. Switch target circle to target select. This is a great conversation about hard targeting and soft targeting. Let me go ahead and show you what I mean by that. Here I've got a hard target, and you can see here that with how the icon is shaped. You can see that now I can still soft target over here to the other striking dummy. If I change my camera angle a little bit, you can kind of see how that looks. If I run over to it, that nice little circle in that regards, but my hard target is still my hard target. And if I wanted to change my hard target, I press I. Now, if you don't like that kind of system, go into character configuration, say switch from a circle to just a hard target. So in this case, now I can left and right on that case. Now, here's what we're going to go ahead and do. We'll bring out my Chocobo companion. You can see here my party member list right there. Pressing up and down allows me to target and switch between party members, which is very handy. How do you get this all the beautiful way that you want it. Character configuration, control settings, and then go into target filters. With my weapon is sheathed, in this case, again, you can control that by pressing down on the left and left stick in this case. I have it set to non-party PCs, alliance, all enemies, aggroing, duty specific, and NPC objects. You'll notice I turn off party members. I do not want to left and right into a party member because I have a dedicated up and down set for just party members for that specific situation. Then when my weapon is drawn, I only want to focus in on enemies. So in this case, I do not want to target anybody else, left or right, no matter what, when my weapon is out. And that is just my personal preference. You have additional custom filters that you can actually enable by holding down left bumper, the magic button in the whole situation. A, B, X, Y, your face buttons are going to allow you to switch your filters. Where do you see what filter you're currently in? I'm clicking too fast here, guys. I apologize. And go here, character, and back. Yep, there we go. Okay. So if I hold down L and I press X, Y, A, and B, right above my character, you start to see all of these different filters, and you can have those all predefined as necessary. So this can be a real handy thing to use, especially when you need something more than your, this custom. Now, as far as it goes, you can use any of their pre-built ones listed here. So if you wanted and only wanted to focus in on party member or friends or alliances and more like that, you actually have that full ability. So it gives you a lot to play around with. So how does this actually work in practice? So my weapon's out and it's only going to focus here on these enemies, which is currently set to the hard targeting. I actually don't prefer that personally. So I'm going to go and turn that off. And so now I have that soft targeting as well as the hard targeting itself. So here, yeah, I can soft target in between any of these different objects. If I put my weapon away, it will allow me to target, obviously there's not too much around me, but at least I can have some options here. And then obviously dedicated up and down for my party member list. All right, here's where it gets fun. Let's go ahead and pick on a couple of enemies here. Over here on the left-hand side, right here, you see my enemy list. I can actually cycle through these by holding down left bumper, the magic button, and pressing up and down. You can see that soft targeting or hard targeting, depending on your setting, is listed here. So I can actually swap my active hard target, holding down left bumper, and just cycling my enemy list easy. Now, if you're on mouse and keyboard, you can easily click on your enemy list and go from there. So it gives you a lot of function and form just in that alone. So if this is the case, let's say here, I am attacking here Striking Dummy A, because Striking Dummy A has all the hate. My Chocobo has done that. Now, in this case, I'm playing as a tank, and maybe I would actually prefer to be the tank in this case. So make sure you have your tank stance on, and boom, and that's why you want to make sure that all of these are in the red. Now, if you are focusing in on and playing the game itself, and you're not the tank, and you want to make sure you're not in the red. This is going to tell you exactly where that's at. In fact, even your party list will tell you where you rank in terms of damage output and more. So just kind of give that kind of a strength. Now, one of the things you'll notice about how I've got this set up, for the most part, you can see here on an Xbox 360, or not 360, or an Xbox One, Xbox Elite Series, it's easy to move and attack with the A, B, and X, Y. Now, I actually, with the Elite Series 2, I have the back paddle set up, so I can actually hold down left and right, and you can, when holding down the trigger, you can press left and right to also kind of switch targets, like your R bumper. I have it set so that I'm using it down here on the back, which I'm trying to hold this and film, and that's a very awkward combination. One of the things you'll notice is that it's very easy to move and attack with the A, B, and X, Y. Up, down, left, and right, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. If we switch over to like a PlayStation control, it's even more difficult to move and actually use your up, down, left, and right. So my preference ends up being with that of the Xbox, but again, it's your personal preference, your budget's going to make the most sense here. I would say dollars to donuts, this is definitely worth the price in terms of your controller, especially for everything you get for it, especially because the game actually supports native PlayStation 5 controller features on PC. But if you actually have the little extra money, the Elite Series 2 is best. So it'd be like, in terms of quality, this is the best, second best, and then a generic Xbox Series controller ends up doing the job nicely. Anyway, if you guys want to dedicate a video on just controllers, just let me know in that regards. So let's go ahead and reset the Striking Dummy. And there we go. So that's a little bit on our targeting and how you have the ability to soft target, hard target, swap target. I think that LB ends up being very helpful, and L1 and up and down on your enemy list ends up being very helpful depending on the role that you're playing and what you're trying to accomplish. Now I want to talk a little bit more about ground targeting. So I've switched over to my Astrologian here. I'm going to go actually show you a new setting that they've added in with Endwalker, limiting ring movement and pressing the action twice to execute. Highly recommend this for controller players. Now to highlight this, let me just kind of click on Earthly Star. You can see here I can actually hold down the R bumper in this case and use the left stick to move my ground targeting around. Now what that setting does is you can see here I'm actually moving the little blue dot higher, but it's going to limit to where I can place within the range. So it's not going to let me have, set the thing further out. So if I zoom out, it's going to give us a better, clearer picture. So I have a lot more control, and Earthly Star has a huge amount of space that you can actually apply with it. Now I'm going to go ahead and press B and cancel out of that. The other option you actually have is within the user macros. And you can see here Earthly Star with a T. What this ends up doing is that it ends up placing Earthly Star on my target's location. And that's actually how I have it bound on the gamepad specifically. So if I just go ahead and use it, it's going to go ahead and press Earthly Star right at my target feet's location, which ends up being a very big AoE circle to play around with. So that's just one difference in how ground targeting works specifically. You still can use the macros, but now with that limiting factor and using right bumper and the left stick, you're not going to end up running yourself into kind of the, like trying to accidentally put things outside of the range. All right, so now let's go ahead and spend a little bit more time with our character configuration and our hotbar settings. Now, here you can see display recast timers. Highly recommend turning on. Hide unassigned slots. I highly recommend actually keeping this on. This is if you turn it off, you can end up having a lot of floating bars, and that's not necessarily going to be great. I also recommend turning off display numbers for any floating hotbars that you have out there. You can turn that off, keep your UI nice and clean. Enable hotbar cycling button. I have on, include pet hotbar when cycling, and enable drag and drop repositioning all turned on. You can play around with your various hotbar settings and layouts. Necessarily, this kind of gives you a good way of kind of like laying out things that can kind of basically act as informing you of what is happening. You want to know when Earthly Star is up, but you don't necessarily need that always on your bar because it's got a 60-second recast. There you go. You can just say, or in this case, you can also set up a little hotbar so when you're moving around, hey, I want to make sure I keep this always using or something like that. You have that ability. And so then that's where the virtual mouse mode comes in. What does sharing mean? Sharing means that as you change your job, if I go ahead and do so right now, and I just kind of switch over to a Dragoon, you can see here within my settings, like they have specific skills that are related just to that job. That means that's turned off. Anything that's turned on means no matter what job I switch to, if I go ahead and just kind of show you guys 7 and 8 here. If I switch to any of my jobs, they're all going to be the same. And that's the power of sharing. So note that that's something you're going to want to keep a close eye on. This is great for mounts. This is great for, I don't know, your book or any kind of thing that you want to have across all your characters. Limit break is a great option to have shared. You should always have that bound to your system. All right. I have enable cross hotbar turned on. I have always display cross hotbar. If you turn it off, boom, a little bit cleaner UI. It's really, and then if you actually hold it down, you can see here it becomes active immediately. Display hotbar help. If you have that turned on and hit apply, you can see it'll tell you the name and the skills and what's going on right there. So note that is something you can, especially as you're learning, that's something may be very helpful until you actually kind of get a good feel of what that muscle memory that you're looking for it needs. Use pet hotbar, mount actions for pet hotbar, enable duty cycle input, display control guide. All of this is, like I would say, start with where I've got it and then kind of play around with that. Hold is going to be preferred. That means you actually hold it down, but toggle, if I hit apply, means if I press it, it's going to be always active. If you're struggling, your hands are tired or fatigued, or you're still kind of learning, sometimes toggle can be really good because you just turn it on and you turn it off. So you don't have to hold down left and right. You will miss out on like various things like the expanded cross hotbar and double cross hotbar accordingly. So we'll go, and those are only a part of the hold mode. Mixed is an interesting bag because you can press it or you can hold it and release, and you kind of have the best of both worlds, but it can trip you up sometimes as as it just happens to be. Also, I have always display WHXP, so that's the case where I got that turned on. return to my cross hotbar after WHXB. Double cross hotbar is what that represents. And you can also position your double cross hotbar separately as needed. Now, if you're struggling with the double click, which is just like a double tap here, you can adjust your WHXB input timer. That's gonna be a huge help for you. That's gonna be huge. And so you have that option as well. And then if I drag this a little bit more in here, the expanded is left trigger plus right trigger. So if I hold down left trigger and right trigger, boom, you can see here I got additional hotbars. That's actually mapped to 2 left and 2 right. So if I go to my hotbar 2, those are those skills that I've got listed there. So I can play around with each and every one of them as needed. Then enable my double cross hotbar, and you can actually say I only want just the face buttons, the ABXY, or I want to use the ABXY plus the up, down, left, and right. And that's set to hotbar 3 and left and right. So you can use this as what is desired. Regarding sheathing and unsheathing of hotbar cycling, you can see here when my weapon is not sheathed by pressing R bumper, I'm going to just tab between 1 and 7 and 8. But if I bring out my weapon, it's going to keep me locked in to 1. That's how I have it set up here, but you can actually control that. So if you wanted to go 1, 2, and 3 when my weapon is out, and if I accidentally tap, then it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. That has a tendency to throw me off a little bit, so I'm going to let you guys make that ultimate decision of what works best for you in terms of your hotbar cycling. You also have it enabled completely for PvP, but honestly, at the way the PvP is structured, I haven't needed it personally. But you can actually see here PvP can use 2 left and 2 right. I used to have that back in the day. Haven't needed it since they've made a lot of different PvP changes, but we'll see. I'm going to be jumping into PvP in patch 6.1 with some updates that they've got planned. That's going to be a huge help overall with it. Let's talk about mastering your map. So like you said, I bring up my map. Here's one of the really cool things. You press down and the left and right trigger, and all of a sudden I've added a flag to the map. That actually adds it to chat. I can send that flag. I can press enter into chat into the party or the team, and I can share that flag wherever they are. So everybody can say, hey, I'm trying to go here. You can do so with a control click on your mouse and keyboard. But overall with the map, you can see here that I can go ahead and add little flags, which is really nice. I can also interact with the various different aetherytes by pressing right bumper. And within the map itself, I can use the up and down left as long as it's active to kind of navigate higher and higher and higher. And same thing kind of drills down into the world as needed as if I press in R bumper. Just like before, if I use the left, I can move up and down, and I can zoom into any particular area. If I want to zoom into it, you can press that right bumper, and I can click on the map, and all of a sudden I'm in that map. So you have a couple of different controls here, and you can navigate with those with this, and you can also even zoom it out and zoom it in as needed. Same thing with your control left bumper and up and down on the right stick as well. Now, if you find that your map is inactive, you can just stop moving. You press your Y to make it active again. And this is something you can control within the settings. If you want more detailed about all the settings that this game can do, check out my Mastering the Settings and UI guide that I've got posted up here on the channel. The link should be in the description as a part of the playlist to help give you guys what you need. So that should be everything that you would possibly want to know about how to use this game and play it on a controller. If there's anything I missed, if there's anything at all you have questions about, or any way I can help make your transition to controller easier, please feel free to ask. You can hit us up on Discord as well if you wanted just a little bit more of a personalized experience. That way we can help get you into the game and hopefully having a great time with it. My name is Brian, and this has been Ginger Prime. Thanks so much for watching, listening, being here, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. But until then, guys, take care.
I just want to say I'm really glad you're feeling better, and I love the videos. Well, I love you too. Michelle? Shoot for the moon, and so even if you fail, you'll reach the stars. Go for the 100K subscribers. Yeah.